Hello everyone, here to show you how to create a mine in C++, Unreal Engine. Here what you will need, you'll need these U properties and these functions. One void, one overlap begin, one overlap end, a mine delay, here you'll, inside the character, all you'll need is this health variable. Here are the U functions. And the U properties. Here's a sound cue for the explosion of the mine. Here's .cpp. Here's the includes. Creating the default subobjects and attaching the default subobject to the root to the mine itself. Here I'm casting to the player and deducting health from damage, which is a variable inside the mine. Here I'm starting the timer, clearing it. Every time you enter the overlap, a timer starts for 3 or 5 seconds. I put it at 3 seconds. And then when you get out, it clears the timer, resetting this timer. Every time you clear it, it resets the value of this delay. And also, to get rid of any sort of performance problems, or prevent it from having any sort of tick, which is unnecessary. I'm gonna go back to the viewport. I'm gonna show you the end result really quick. Here's one mine, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. And also, since I changed it to edit anywhere, changed the U property to edit anywhere, you can change. Actually, it was actually exploding at 5 seconds. So now I changed it, and now 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. And then 1,000, 2, 1,000, step out. Clears the timer. You can keep walking back and forth between it. Doesn't automatically explode until I sit there for 3 seconds. What I want to do for the HUD, you just right click, user interface, widget blueprint, call it HUD, go inside the HUD, create a text block by dragging this out, setting it to 0, 0, and then binding a function to it. What I did, I binded player health, or you create a binding and you call it whatever you want. I renamed it health, renamed the text block health. Here, I attached the sphere component to the mine mesh, as you can see in the CPP file and the C++ file over here. I attached on overlap begin to the prox mine. Attach the on overlap end to the proximity mine sphere component. This what drives the overlap. Here I'm casting to the player. I'm using this function in order to successfully grab this variable from the player, which is the health variable. I'm deducting damage from it, which is 30. This is 30, this is 100. Here I'm playing a sound cue every time this function is called after 3 seconds using a timer. I just called the function explode. I set the root component to the mind mesh, and I set up the attachment to the mind mesh. Here all I did was set this variable to health at anywhere, blueprint rewritable, so I can cast to it inside the HUD. And then what I did, I just created a blueprint class based on the mine, and I created a folder, called it blueprints. What you do in order to create a folder, you go over here, go in new folder, or create a new folder, you call it whatever, blah, call it blah, set the color. I can set to a existing color or create a new color. I can just make it red or white or however you want. You can make it green. There you go, you have a new folder. You can delete it by just right clicking it and selecting delete, and delete the folder. Here I have it set to overlap all dynamic for the proximity sphere. I have this set up to where it simulates physics and does not generate overlap events, and I set the collision enabled to query in physics so that then you can push around the block. I can set this to world static or world dynamic. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is the collision responses and the object responses. Well, this does matter because this is what it will affect, and which object trace channel you should probably pay attention to. I'll just leave it to physics body. Here inside the mine, I set up one of the assets that it gives you in Unreal Engine. I set to explosion cue. You can set it to wherever you want, but of course explosion cue because we're working with a mine. Or the mine sound cue to explosion. I set the mine sound cue to explosion cue, and here I set the mine delay to 3 seconds. Set the damage to 30. Here I create a text block inside the HUD. By dragging this out and setting it to 0, 0, 0. Okay. Now I binded a function by creating a binding and writing this in here inside the function. Inside that function, I cast it to the mine tutorial character, and I get the player pawn, and then I grab the variable health, which is a blueprint callable variable, and then I just place it inside the return node, and it automatically changes the integer to a text variable, a text type, data type. So it can be used inside of the viewport. I go into the blueprints, go into the first person character CPP here, first person CPP, go over here, create an event begin play class or node. I created a HUD widget by doing create widget and selecting the HUD. Now, then what I did, I added to viewport. Add to viewport. And there you go. That's how you show the HUD to the viewport. Here's the final product again. 1002, 1003, 1000. 1002, 1000. Step away from the mine. Clears the timer. Go back in. Step away. Go back in. Sit here for 3 seconds. What you can do, once you enter the mine, you can play a sound cue that will loop until you exit it. So like just play like a sound cue that gets constantly louder or something, and you know, make it sound like a real mine once you enter the overlap. Once you enter the overlap, play a sound cue. Play sound at the location, and just play a sound cue that gets louder over a set amount of time. I'm destroying the memory, destroying the class at runtime. You can then, you know, put an emitter here and make it so that then your character will, you know, see a particle emitter once it explodes, and you know, do whatever you want. You can cast to the player, you know, make it so that then the HUD has an effect that plays once you're hurt. You can do a lot of things with this one mine. Here's overlap begin, on overlap end. And here's basically it. Here's the includes. I almost forgot to mention the includes, which are pretty important if you want some of these functions to work, and you want to be able to call them, create a sound cue or cast properly, because you need to include the player in order to cast, or include whatever you're trying to cast to inside of the CPP file, because if you don't, you won't be able to cast. Inside the player, all I did was create the health property, U property, and made a blueprint rewritable so that then I can call inside the HUD. Here I attach the overlaps to the overlap event to the proximity mine sphere comp inside the constructor. If that does not work for you, depending on your version of Unreal Engine, then you just take this and you place it inside the begin play. But since it works for me in my instance, I'm just going to leave it inside the constructor. Okay, that'll be it for this tutorial. I hope you guys have a great day. See ya.